political commentator Anna Navarro, and Matt Schlapp, chairman of the American Conservative Union. Matt, what do you do about this?
Nobody likes to see these types of numbers, Chris, but I think it's important. We're at a point in politics where, I didn't get a copy of this poll, so I haven't read it thoroughly. But if you look at the numbers of Congress, they're abysmal. If you look at the fact that we just had 6 Republican senators switch their vote on Obamacare approval, there's great concern out there amongst Democrats and Republicans. You have a lot of Democrats who are looking at this strategy of hashtag resistance, and they know that's not a good strategy. But if you're the president and you're looking at these numbers, you know that you've got to steady the ship on these messages that come out of the White House, and you have to make sure that you're pushing back on false stories about what their agenda is. And number one, you've got to get accomplishments through Congress. You've got to repeal Obamacare, and you've got to get a big tax package done.
So how does the president lift his own credibility by attacking the others, the credibility of others, Anna?
I don't think it's about attacking the credibility of others. I think the solution is very simple. Start telling the truth. Start telling the American people the truth. Taking your job seriously, stop making things up, stop exaggerating, stop outright lying, and then repeating it over and over and over again. And I think the people around him, instead of justifying it, instead of spinning it, instead of defending it, need to tell him, you are no longer the host of The Apprentice. You're not a used car salesman. You are the president of the United States, and the American people deserve to have to believe you at some point. You know, look, Matt worked at the Bush White House. He was there during we had 9/11, we had Katrina. In this country of 300+ million people, of 50 states, at some point we're going to have a grave natural or man-made disaster. We need to believe our president when he stands behind that podium and speaks to us. And today, Donald Trump has no credibility because he's been president for 200 days, and he has lied practically every single one of those days.
Matt Schlapp, do you think the president can change?
Oh, well, I disagree with this whole premise that he's not truthful. I disagree with what Anna said there. I actually think we have a very polarized country. We are divided on almost every major issue. And there are people that really despise Donald Trump, that they hate him. And there are big sections of this country that are rooting for him. Let me tell you about the people who are rooting for him, Chris. They don't like everything about him, and they don't like politicians generally, and they don't like it when things don't get done in Congress. And the president's going to, bear some of the responsibility for that. But the part of Trump, of President Trump, that great sections of this country do like is that he is authentic. He does tell you what he thinks. He doesn't put a fine polish on everything. He says it very bluntly. And
but how do you square that with 3 out of 4 people thinking he's lying?
Well, Chris, like I said, I haven't delved into your poll. All I will tell you is you've got to take some responsibility, all of us do, on the coverage of this. When you call the president a liar, or other people do, for 200 days, which I think even on climate change, to hear the coverage to say that people like me who are skeptics over the idea that man is causing the globe to put itself in a position where it's so warm that human life will not be able to be sustained. I'm a skeptic of that. I'm not a liar on that issue.
You're also not a scientist.
I'm a skeptic.
And when you have 13 agencies and scientists from the government saying something and they're worried about being suppressed, it's a credibility issue.
I want you
and that's
to know
why 3 out of 4 people say they don't trust the White House.
It's wrong for people in the media to say that on issues of abortion, on climate change, How
is abortion and climate change the same thing, Matt?
It's about science. And guess what? You're wrong on the science. Many of you who believe that people on the pro-life side aren't looking at the science of it. Come on, the science is on my side on the unique
It's not about science. It's about ethics, religion, and morality is what abortion's about. It's not about science.
There's a political difference. And just because someone's on the other side, please don't call him a liar. I think that's not helping the country.
Hold on a second, Anna, hold on a second, because I get a lot of this. You like to throw a label on something you don't like. I get it, politically persuasive. But it's also BS a lot of the time, Matt. Nobody's making abortion about science. I haven't even bring up the issue.
Abortion is about science.
You did. Abortion, the idea of when life begins, guess what?
Science.
Nobody knows.
Science.
You can believe it begins at conception.
Right.
You can begin to believe 40 days after, the way the Jews do.
This is the problem.
You can believe in viability. There is an unknown component to it. That's
No,
not what
there's
the
not.
science is behind
Each
climate
unique
change.
life,
Matt, they're not the same thing.
The science of when
Okay.
life begins is unquestionable. And the question on climate change, actually there's a great diversity on the science. And we do have political disagreements. But I think it's wrong in the country when we call people who have a contrary position a liar. And that's what's dominating the coverage.
Anna, that's
of
a
much
fair
of
point.
Donald
That is
Trump.
just-
Anna, that's a fair
that is
point that
completely
if you just because you
inaccurate.
disagree, you call someone a liar. I agree with Matt. Disagreement doesn't mean somebody's lying, somebody's telling the truth. But that's also not the case with a lot of these issues, especially when it comes to climate science.
Listen, you know, Matt is very able, and we are now chasing this rabbit and talking about abortion and policy disagreements. This is not about policy disagreements. You don't call somebody a liar because they disagree with you on, you know, one policy issue or another. It's about the 3 to 5 million illegal immigrants he lied about. It's about the crowds of the inaugural he lied about.
It's about no
He
coverage of
lies
North
about-
Korea when it was being covered as he
Exactly.
tweeted it. It's about the birther thing. Yeah, there's a pattern here, Matt, and you know it. It's not that people disagree with his heartfelt beliefs about abortion or about climate science.
Let me give some on this, okay? I think it's a very fair criticism. I think your question, the poll said that people are dubious about some of the things they hear coming out of the White House. It's a big, overwhelming number. I'll give you that's nothing anybody who works in a White House wants to see. And I think some of the communications chaos that has come out of the White House over the last 6 months that was front and center with the White House press briefing, I don't think that helped things. And I think the president and his team have to be awfully careful with how they characterize things, because people are listening and people are watching. But I do think that we're in a big fight. We're in a big political fight in this country. There are divides. Anna and I are both Republicans. We have a strong disagreement on the Trump agenda. I'm totally for President Trump and his agenda. I want it to pass. I think it's going to make America better. As we fight, let's have a fair fight on a disagreement on the issues. I think President Obama was wrong on a lot of things. I think it was wrong for Loretta Lynch to use an alias in her email. I think that was duplicitous.
Yeah, I just
There's
don't see
that.
I just see the legitimacy of your premise. Nobody's coming at President Trump because, Anna Navarro, of what he believes about abortion. I don't even think we know for sure
not
what
right.
he does believe about
Listen,
abortion.
listen,
That's not
or
right.
what it is about climate science. It's about his ability to tell the truth about anything.
You just said that the
No,
administration
it's
was
not.
going to
Look, you're
squelch
trying to make this segment
Anna.
about something that it's completely not about.
No,
You've
no,
talked
you
and talked
are.
and talked.
You just want
You've
to
tried to make this
prosecute
about
the president.
abortion. You've tried to make it about science. That's not about what it is. It's about the fact that the President of the United States goes out and lies either by Twitter or in person daily. Last week he told us he had phone calls he did not have with people who did not call him on the phone, who he claimed told him things they did not tell him. That is a lie. Some of you may choose to believe alternate facts and live in an alternate universe. Some of us choose to believe in a factual universe.
Let's just do this. The one thing I would say is the following, which is, I think hold the president accountable, hold the White House accountable. I don't have any problem with that. But let's be awfully careful when you throw around the word lie on all these positions that the president and the people who support
Give
him
us an
are taking.
example of the
Because
president being
what
called a
you do-
liar where it's unfair, Matt.
I listened to CNN on the drive-in, Chris, and I heard you characterize those folks that are critics on climate change as lying about the science. And I think you should take that back. I don't think that's accurate. There's a great diversity of views from scientists, true climatologists, not just people with PhDs who are liberal professors across this country or people embedded in the bureaucracy. We ought to have a real discussion on these things. Yes, I'm not a scientist, and neither are you.
Matt, it's just,
but we ought to be careful with throwing away
inherently
the term.
misleading. I'll say it again.
That's
okay?
the same thing
And
as a lie.
I'll say it again.
That's a synonym.
What you're saying, no. Well, look, call it what you want. I see the definition of lying as being pretty plain. A factual inaccuracy done with intention to deceive. Okay?
Right.
That's the definition of a lie. It's a good
like
one.
that
I think you should
definition.
own it. Here's the
Yes.
deal with it. Okay? When it comes to how much temperature is changing, when will big shifts happen? That's going to be soft. They don't know. The predictions and the contentions vary. But you have, again, 13 government agencies, scientists from each and all, saying there are real problems in an absolute effect that is human-driven and it needs to be addressed.
Right, but
when you
you're taking
attack that premise with nothing other than your feelings about it, that you're skeptical, that starts to take you into the realm of gross.
I'm governed by emotions when it comes to these questions.
But
of
you're
policy.
not a scientist.
Neither are you, and you don't even understand
But that's
what these
why I
scientists
don't
are saying,
debunk 90+% of the scientific community on the basis of how I feel about it, Matt.
Can you just do me a favor?
Are we here not talking about Donald Trump being a liar,
Look,
versus
it all
being
grows
truthful?
out of the same thing because the president has had to own this kind of stuff,
You want to make this a debate about abortion and about science because you cannot defend the fact that the president of the United States is a compulsive, pathetic, daily liar. You can't defend that.
Anna,
so you are making us chase
you
down
Trump
this path of abortion
syndrome.
and of
you need to relax.
No, you have Trump Kool-Aid overdose is what you have.
Is either of those are either of those based on science?
It's good for you because it gives you
Are
access.
either of those maladies based on science? By the way, I just want to know. Is Trump derangement syndrome, is that scientific? Is the Kool-Aid thing science?
But I might need counseling after this session, I'll tell you that.
Look, Matt, I'll tell you what. I hear where you're coming from.
Everybody
on the panel.
Don't call me a liar.
It's too early in the
I'm
morning.
not calling you a liar. I've never called you a liar. I'm saying.
No, but just when I have a political disagreement with somebody.
Of course, then it's not lying.
And maybe some people on the other side with me.
No, Anna, it's a legitimate point. Just because you disagree with something about somebody doesn't mean somebody's lying.
No, but that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is a huge list that gets published all the time by people who keep track of what Donald Trump says.
Both are true, though.
Confirm that they are lies.
Both are true. Both are true.
Hold
on a second, guys.
Hold
on a second,
guys. The lists are so long that they take out an entire newspaper
Anna,
page.
I know.
We're not talking about
I develop
science.
parts of the list. We report
on
on the list. We do fact checks all the time. I get it. I'm just saying, Matt is making a valid point. Is it a little bit off point? Yes. But he's making the point that just because you disagree doesn't mean that somebody's a liar. Matt, you're right about what you're saying. I got you. Matt is right about what he's saying about disagreement in general. Now, to Anna's point, that's not the specific context of our discussion. The president's credibility problem, I would suggest, there's certainly nothing in the poll that suggests otherwise, isn't that people feel that his well-reasoned positions are mendacious, that he's lying about those things. That's not what it is. It's what Anna's talking about, that when he makes things up that work for him, it is transparent, and over time, it has eroded trust in him, even among his base. That's a real problem, and it's nothing to do with any specific issue.
Can I try an answer to this?
Please, Matt.
Okay, so my view is this, which is whether we call this fake news or as a conservative, I do believe there's a liberal slant to most national news outlets. If you look at that Harvard study and the coverage of Donald Trump, it is 70, 80, 80, 90, 85, 90% negative, all constant negative press on the president. And I do think that it comes down to a different worldview on a lot of these folks. Yes, you can look at tweets, you can look at statements, you can look at things he has said that turned out to not be accurate, but by the same time, with much of this coverage, there's a fundamental disagreement with the president's attacks on these major media institutions, on the swamp or the bureaucracy in Washington that comes out with these studies that you and I have spent too much time talking about. He is taking on these fights, which a lot of us are applauding him for, and that his agenda is a big threat to much of the folks who are guiding the coverage of him, and it's overwhelmingly negative. All I would say is this. Give the guy a shot. The American people are fair. If they don't like his agenda, they won't reelect him. Just cover the policy debate. And I'm not saying that you don't in every case. I'm just saying it is always skewed, almost always, in this idea of putting Trump in these basket of deplorables as a liar, as someone who's unfit. And you're not helping the country because actually that makes people like Trump better because they actually have a lower opinion of many people in the press than they even do of politicians.
The day that the press is more popular than the President of the United States, we have a problem. And a final word.
Right, that's right.
Look, I think that the press has got a duty to scrutinize what politicians, what elected leaders say and do. And I think that part of the problem is not only that he lies constantly, but also his hypocrisy. When he goes and talks about immigration, and yet his resorts are calling out and putting out, applications for foreign workers. When he goes and talks about things made in America, and practically every item that he sold under Trump brand is made in China or somewhere else.
Not a single lie
so there.
there.
Is
Not a single lie.
There is hypocrisy and there is
No.
lying. And all
There's
of
no
that
lying.
is eroding the credibility.
That's not a lie
All
there.
right. Let's leave it there. We'll leave it on a difference of
Okay.
opinion. But Anna, Matt, I appreciate the debate as always welcome here. And by the way, that's an interesting component in the pursuit